Do you know the story of the woman who dared to fly around the world? Amelia Earhart, the aviation pioneer, was on a historic journey in 1937. But during her flight, she vanished without a trace. Despite extensive searches, no trace of her or her plane was ever found. Her disappearance remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. To this day, no one knows what truly happened to Amelia Earhart. Her legacy lives on, inspiring generations of explorers and adventurers. Do you know which U.S. president played a pivotal role in ending one of history's bloodiest wars? In 1905, Theodore Roosevelt took an unexpected step to broker peace between two warring nations. The Russo-Japanese War raged on, with neither side willing to surrender. Roosevelt invited both sides to negotiate in secret, mediated behind closed doors. The Portsmouth Treaty ended the war, but Roosevelt's greatest victory was yet to come. For his efforts, he became the first U.S. president to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Do you know the name Claudette Colvin? 9 months before Rosa Parks, this 15-year-old defied segregation on a Montgomery bus. In March 1955, Claudette was headed home from school when she made a choice that changed history. When the bus driver told her to give up her seat to a white passenger, Claudette refused. Her defiance led to her arrest, but she stood her ground, knowing the weight of her action. Her arrest sparked a fire. The case helped fuel the Montgomery bus boycott that followed. Yet, her name is often forgotten. Claudette Colvin was a teen who dared to stand up for what was right. Her courage paved the way for Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement. Remember her name, Claudette Colvin. Do you know the story of the lost colony of Roanoke? In 1587, English settlers vanished without a trace, leaving behind only one clue: the word Croatoan carved into a post. In 1587, 117 settlers, including men, women, and children, arrived on Roanoke Island, North Carolina, seeking a new life in the New World. When Governor John White returned 3 years later, he found the colony abandoned. The only clue was the word Croatoan carved into a post, but no one was there to explain its meaning. The island was eerily quiet, with no signs of struggle or violence. The settlers' belongings were left untouched, adding to the mystery of their disappearance. For centuries, researchers have searched for answers, studying old maps and documents, but the fate of the lost colony remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. To this day, the question lingers: what happened to the settlers of Roanoke? Did they find a new life, or did they meet an unknown fate? Do you know the name behind the groundbreaking story of a soldier who changed history? In 1952, a former GI named Christine Jorgensen made headlines worldwide. After serving in World War II, she traveled to Denmark for a procedure that would redefine her life. In Copenhagen, Christine became the first widely known American transgender woman to undergo gender reassignment surgery. Her journey sparked a revolution, making her a trailblazer for LGBTQ+ rights. Today, Christine Jorgensen's legacy continues to inspire and pave the way for a more inclusive world. Have you ever wondered how something invisible could change the world? In 1918, it all began in a quiet Kansas town, where the air was thick with mystery. In Haskell County, a simple flu virus took a deadly turn. Soldiers carried it to distant lands, and the world was unprepared for what came next. Within months, the flu spread like wildfire, hopping continents and leaving devastation in its wake. Hospitals overflowed with the sick, and families were left grieving. The flu didn't discriminate, sparing no one in its path. It all started here, in a place so ordinary, yet it became the epicenter of a global catastrophe. The flu rode on the backs of soldiers, turning battlefields into graveyards and homes into tombs. By the end, 50 million lives were lost, a stark reminder of how fragile life can be. Have you heard of the spy who defied the odds during World War II? Meet Virginia Hall, the woman who turned her prosthetic leg into a legend. Rejected by the British due to her prosthetic leg, she joined the French resistance, proving her worth in the field. Codenamed Dutch or Limping Lucy, she evaded capture by the Nazis, using her prosthetic leg as a clever disguise. She led sabotage missions, risking everything to disrupt Nazi operations. Blending in, she became a master of deception, hiding in plain sight. She escaped capture multiple times, using her prosthetic leg as a clever ruse to outsmart the enemy. Her story is a testament to courage. Virginia Hall, the limping spy who defied impossible odds, remains a legend to this day. Do you know the hidden heroes of World War II? Over 10,000 women served as codebreakers, cracking enemy codes and saving lives. They were mathematicians, linguists, and puzzle masters, solving codes that changed the course of the war. Their work was so vital, yet their identities were kept secret for decades. These women were among the most skilled codebreakers, but their stories were buried in classified files. Imagine solving codes under pressure, knowing lives depended on your every move. Their contributions were pivotal, yet their names were erased from history. It wasn't until the 2000s that their stories were finally told, revealing a chapter of history long forgotten. Do you know the true hero of the American Revolution? Meet Sybil Ludington, the 16-year-old who rode 40 miles in one night. In 1777, Sybil Ludington rode twice as far as Paul Revere to warn of British attacks. She braved the dark forests and cold nights, alerting militia to the British threat. Her brave ride saved countless lives and helped turn the tide of battle. Yet, her story was forgotten for centuries, overshadowed by more famous names. Today, we finally honor her courage and her incredible midnight ride. Do you know the man who envisioned a world powered by thin air? Nikola Tesla, the visionary inventor, imagined a future where energy flowed freely, without wires. In the early 1900s, Tesla proposed wireless energy transmission, a revolutionary idea that would transform the world. He also envisioned a teleforce death ray, a weapon so powerful, it could defend nations from afar. But his ideas were too radical for his time. Investors and scientists doubted his vision, leaving his projects unfinished. Today, his visions of wireless energy are finally coming to life, a century after he first imagined them. Tesla's legacy reminds us that genius often outpaces its time. His ideas, once dismissed, are now shaping our future. Do you know the first tornado in U.S. history struck Virginia in 1680, over a century before the nation was founded? It roared through fields, uprooting trees and flattening homes with incredible force. Eyewitnesses described it as a horrible wind that danced and whirled. This storm left a lasting mark, recorded as the earliest documented tornado in U.S. history. Its path of destruction was documented, a testament to nature's power. Historians still study this event, a reminder of weather's impact on history. Have you ever wondered if a made-up place could become real? Meet Agloe, a town that started as a trick on a map. In the 1930s, a store was built there, and people started to call it home. The cartographers who created it as a phantom trap were stunned when it actually appeared on real maps. Today, Agloe has a school, a church, and about 100 residents who call it home. From a phantom town to a real place, Agloe's story is a mapmaker's miracle. In the 1920s, young women in factories painted watch dials with glowing radium paint, unaware of the deadly substance they handled daily. They painted with precision, their brushes Zan Man Ji Ming de radium, unaware of the poison they were ingesting. Years later, they suffered horribly, their jaws rotting away, a grim reminder of the invisible danger they faced. In a landmark case, the Radium Girls fought for justice, exposing the truth and sparking labor reforms that save lives. Their story, once forgotten, now stands as a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of worker safety. Do you know the story of 13 women who passed NASA's astronaut tests in the 1960s, yet were never allowed to fly to space? They aced the same rigorous tests as their male counterparts, proving they were as capable as any astronaut. These women, known as the Mercury 13, were pioneers, breaking barriers in a world dominated by men. But in 1961, NASA's gender policies barred them from space, despite their qualifications. Their achievements were hidden, their stories untold for decades. Decades later, their contributions were finally recognized, but their dream of spaceflight remained unfulfilled. Their legacy lives on, inspiring future generations to reach for the stars, no matter the obstacles. Do you know the untold story of 7 brothers who defied Nazi U-boats in World War II? From Matthews County, Virginia, they answered the call to serve. They braved torpedo attacks and freezing North Atlantic waves. Every mission was a race against death. Enemy submarines stalked their every move. They survived torpedo attacks and sinking ships. 7 brothers, 1 family, united in heroism. Their legacy lives on. Do you know what happened after the Apollo 11 astronauts returned from the moon? They were met not just by celebrations, but by a very unusual precaution. They were placed in this unassuming mobile trailer, supposedly to protect Earth from lunar pathogens. But behind the scenes, scientists were already skeptical about the real risks. The astronauts spent 21 days in this makeshift quarantine, though they knew the risk was negligible. In reality, this entire quarantine was a carefully staged stunt to prepare for future missions. And so, the greatest hoax in space history was revealed, to no one. Have you ever wondered who was the first non-native settler of Manhattan? Meet Juan Rodriguez, a man whose story is etched into the history of New York. In 1613, Juan Rodriguez, a Dominican-born sailor, became the first non-native resident of Manhattan. His journey began when he decided to stay behind as his ship sailed back to Europe. As a trader, Juan connected cultures, exchanging goods between Europeans and Native Americans. His unique background made him a bridge between worlds. Juan's life was not just about trade. He faced loneliness, adapting to a new land far from his home. Yet, he thrived, becoming a symbol of resilience. Today, Juan Rodriguez is remembered as the first New Yorker. His story reminds us that our city's roots are deeply intertwined with diversity and courage. In 1846, a group of settlers ventured west, seeking a better life. But their journey took a terrifying turn in the Sierra Nevada mountains. They set out with hope, loaded with provisions, and the promise of a brighter future. But winter struck early, trapping them in the mountains. Snow buried their wagons, and supplies ran out. Desperation set in. With no food, no hope of rescue, they faced a horrifying choice. In the freezing cabin, they resorted to the unthinkable, cannibalism, to survive. When rescue finally came, only 48 survived. The mountains held their secrets, and the tragedy became a haunting chapter in history. Do you know the Statue of Liberty almost stood in Egypt? It was originally designed for the Suez Canal in the 1800s. The original design featured Egyptian motifs, blending ancient and modern elements for a unique monument. French engineers envisioned it as a gateway to the Suez Canal, symbolizing progress and unity. But funding issues forced a rethink. The statue was redesigned and offered to the United States as a gift. Constructed in France, it became a symbol of freedom and a beacon of hope for Americans. Unveiled in 1886, it became an iconic symbol of American freedom, but its Egyptian origins remain a hidden story. Next time you see the Statue of Liberty, remember its roots in Egypt and the story of a monument that crossed continents. Have you ever wondered about the origins of your morning alarm? In 1787, Levi Hutchins invented the first alarm clock, but there was a catch. It could only ring at one time, 4 a.m. sharp. Imagine waking up every morning at 4 a.m., no matter what. Levi's invention was revolutionary, but it had its limits. Thankfully, today we have more flexibility to start our day. Have you ever heard of the Spanish general who changed the course of the Revolutionary War? Meet Bernardo de Galvez, whose bold strategies and diverse troops would leave a lasting mark on history. In 1779, Galvez set his sights on the Gulf Coast, a region teeming with British forces. His plan? Liberate it, one battle at a time. What made Galvez's army unique? It wasn't just their numbers, it was their diversity. Free black soldiers fought alongside Spanish troops, a rare sight in those days. The battles were brutal, but Galvez's forces were relentless. From Mobile to Pensacola, they left the British reeling, unable to withstand the pressure. By 1781, the Gulf Coast was under Spanish control. Galvez's victories weakened the British, turning the tide of the Revolutionary War. But here's the twist. Galvez's legacy isn't just about battles won, it's about the people who fought alongside him, including the unsung heroes, the free black soldiers who played a crucial role. So, the next time you think about the Revolutionary War, remember this. It wasn't just the founding fathers who won it. It was a coalition of heroes, including Bernardo de Galvez and the brave soldiers who followed him. Have you ever heard of the government intentionally poisoning its people? During the 1920s Prohibition, the US government had a deadly plan. They decided to lace industrial alcohol with poison. The goal? To deter bootleggers. The result? A public health disaster. Over 10,000 people died from drinking this deadly alcohol. This dark chapter in history is a chilling reminder of desperation and failure. Do you know the name James Armistead? He was a spy who changed history. Enslaved, yet fiercely intelligent, he worked undercover in British camps. He risked his life, gathering crucial info on British troop movements. He passed intel to General Lafayette, shaping key Revolutionary War battles. His courage turned the tide in the fight for American independence. After the war, he petitioned for freedom. In 1787, he became James Armistead Lafayette, a free man. Do you know who really sent astronauts to the moon? Meet the black mathematicians who quietly changed history. Katherine Johnson, a brilliant mind, calculated the exact paths for NASA's most daring missions. Yet, they faced segregation and discrimination every day. Their calculations were the backbone of every successful launch. These hidden figures paved the way for a future of equality in space exploration. Their story reminds us that true genius knows no color or gender. Do you know the shocking truth behind some of Disney's most beloved classics? Meet Retta Scott, one of the first female animators at Disney, who helped bring Bambi to life. Her groundbreaking work was essential to creating the heartwarming moments in Bambi. Yet, despite her brilliance, her name was erased from the credits. Systemic sexism and gender bias left her contributions invisible. For decades, her story remained hidden, until now. Retta Scott's legacy is a reminder of the hidden heroes behind the magic of Disney.